Welcome to a special Earth Day episode of the Codcast. My name is Bruce Moll of CommonWealth Magazine, and today I'm joined by three business leaders who are focused on sustainability at their companies. Cynthia Curtis is the Senior Vice President of Sustainability at the commercial real estate firm JLL. Cahill is the Director of Corporate Responsibility at John Hancock. And Tedd Saunders is Chief Sustainability Officer at the Saunders Hotel Group. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Glad to be here, Bruce.
Kyle, let's start with you. Where do you think the business community is on sustainability? Is there broad buy-in, or is it hit or miss by each company?
It's a great question, Bruce. And I would say that to a large degree, the private sector, particularly in the Boston area, is fairly far advanced in terms of sustainability. Certainly, it could vary by industries. At John Hancock, we tend to think about sustainability and climate change in three different parts of our business. We think about our operations and our people. We think about our products, services, and investments. And we think about our broader role in the community. And I think many companies who have been on this journey think about what's happening inside our four walls, but also think about increasingly the broader public at large, including the communities in which they operate.
And Tedd, why do you think the pursuit of sustainability is catching on with businesses? It doesn't seem like it would be a profitable undertaking, but I've read some of what you've written, and you say it is.
Indeed. I think, to me, it's surprising that things haven't taken there hasn't been a faster pace to companies picking up these strategies. I think we're now at the point where when you go look at international business, even at Davos, one of the top issues of any issue that concerns CEOs, international CEOs, is sustainability. So we're seeing it at the brightest and the best companies, and we're a small company in a very big industry, travel and tourism. Travel and tourism is the world's largest service industry, and we're very proud to have been leading the charge since 1989 in terms of sustainability. But it seems to me that, and I've said this for years, and it's actually come true, that hotels there's so many benefits to an approach that is sustainable because it's good for business, it reduces waste, employees feel good about it, and they stay longer and work harder, and employees are attracted, and guests are attracted to it and are very loyal. So it's got many, many benefits in addition to the business benefits, in addition to having a positive impact on the environment.
Yeah, when I travel, which is not all that often, I notice more and more hotels, you guys probably travel a lot more than I do, say, if you're concerned about the environment, maybe you just hang that towel and let it dry rather than throw it in on the floor and have it picked up. And it's interesting. You stand there going, after you towel off, you go, what should I do? And it works, even psychologically. And I imagine that's what you're saying. It works for the company, too, because that reduces how many towels per day you have to wash and dry, and what have you. So,
yeah. And that's the tip of the proverbial iceberg, because there are so many things happening behind the scenes that the guest does not see, that you wouldn't see in a hotel specifically, but in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of waste, food composting, or the things that are really most visible are in the restaurants and
right.
With organic foods and local produce and recycling and that kind of thing, light bulbs, energy efficient light bulbs.
And Cynthia, when you guys you have corporate responsibility in your title, but I know sustainability is a big focus of what you do. In my mind, sustainability sort of means, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, means sort of you're trying to figure out a way that the business is sustainable over the long term without damaging the environment, without contributing to climate change. Maybe that's too sweeping, but how do you see what you do? What does that mean to be head of sustainability at a very large company?
Right. So, and JLL is a Fortune 500 company. We've got 90,000 employees around the world. Sustainability, we take a very broad look at that term. So, our definition is, yes, it's about ensuring that the business is sustainable over the long term, But it's also about ensuring that the communities in which we live and work and our people who support us and who work with us have opportunity over the long term. It's about not. It's about ensuring that we don't damage and the environment, and we ensure that the resources that we use today will be available to those in future generations. So we do take a very broad look. It's our communities, it's our workplaces, the footprint that we have. It's what we can do with and through our clients. So we manage 1,500 times the square footage that we ourselves occupy on behalf of our clients. So clearly our biggest impact and opportunity for impact is with and through our clients.
And any one of you could take this question. I'm just sort of curious, do you see your job as sort of contained to your company, or are you a partner with state and local government as they're doing things, and do you need their officials' help to do what you do, or is it you do your thing, they do their thing? How does that
Start.
Sure. I think that's a great question, and I think I think Ted and Cynthia would agree that for professionals who have been working in quote-unquote sustainability for many years, I think there's been a lot of looks in the mirror lately, because I think I mentioned before there's been quite a bit of progress, we like to think, around corporate sustainability, but at the same time we're sort of aware of lack of progress on emissions reductions and climate, the increasing income inequality, health issues, so on and so forth. So I think it's incumbent on all of us. Certainly you want to get your own house in order, and that's fine, and do no harm is a good start. But for the magnitude of the challenges that we have ahead of us, it's incumbent on all of us to work together as private sector entities, whether it's through organizations like ELM or elsewhere, but also this idea of public-private partnering, working with civil society. I think we're fortunate in a lot of ways that Massachusetts is a state that not only leads on a lot of social and environmental issues, but also leads in terms of partnering in unique ways. So I'd say it's incumbent on all of us to look beyond our own businesses.
Ted, does the state or local officials here in the Boston area, do they reach out to you occasionally to pick your brain about what they should be doing, or is there any, discussion back and forth along those lines?
I would say they sometimes reach out to us, but we often go to the mountain, as you would say. I spend quite a bit of time advocating for strong environmental policies as a responsible business leader, and our company believes in that strongly. We find that, for a long time, legislators were only hearing from industry representatives and from businesses that said, if you pass this legislation or these policies, it's going to be bad for business. We're going to have to lay off people, and costs will go up, and so. And so I think it's very important that businesses like us, who are in the ELM Corporate Council or with E2,
ELM, let's just make sure.
Environmental League of Massachusetts,
Right.
Corporate Council, or Environmental Entrepreneurs, or the Alliance for Business Leadership. These are all great business groups, and there's a lot of well-known, as we see here at the table, well-known companies, leading companies that are involved and willing to say, we're not just doing something in our own, within our own four walls, as it were, but we're willing to advance sound policy and advocate for sound policy because we know it's good for business in the long run.
And Cynthia, it would seem like managing all this commercial real estate, that would be like a direct connection, because that's one area, building, heating, emissions, all that sort of stuff, that's one area where the state is trying to do better. Is there much give and take that you have with state officials, or is there stuff that the state should be doing that would help you do what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, I think, and as Ted said, we do advocate, but it's more of we will go forward. We're not asked necessarily. But for us, it is about protecting assets, the assets of our clients. How can we best do that? Well, resiliency, adaptation, efficiencies. Our clients are interested in, of course, the bottom line, So what are the things that we can do to help them achieve that? And where can policy play a role in providing choice, right? And in helping set guardrails that we can work within and make greater investments in, so that we can bring that to our clients, those benefits to our clients. So yeah, it's are there more things that they can be doing? Absolutely. There's more things that we all can be doing. At the base level, price on carbon. There's so many things that would flow from that. It's more of a market-based approach, which is what we would prefer, rather than a multitude of regulations. Put a price on carbon and let that flow through various, initiatives and decisions. And because at the end of the day, it's a business decision.
Yeah, that seems to be an issue. I've been on Beacon Hill for a number of years, and that seems to be an issue that initially was like, we're not going anywhere near that. But it is, over the last, I would say, 5 years, it started to pick up a lot of steam. Mm-hmm. I think the governor, who is a Republican, is still a bit wary of anything that smacks of higher prices that would be very visible to people. But even he is talking about what they call RGGI on transportation fuels, and so that would drive up the price of fuel based on carbon content to a certain degree. And so it still isn't quite there yet. And I got to say that maybe not your colleagues, but other colleagues in the business community, like you said, Ted, have resisted that whole notion of putting so it's interesting that do all three of you support that? Or?
Yes, very much
it
so.
all depends on how it's rolled out.
Right.
Right. Is it just this flat tax that is, there are a variety of it's all in the details.
Yeah.
Right? How's it going to be rolled out? I'm not sitting here suggesting that all of my colleagues would be in support of it, but it's the devil in the details.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say, Bruce, and you mentioned it, their pricing carbon. One option is a tax. You mentioned RGGI, which is a price on carbon, and that's been quite successful. The Transportation and Climate Initiative, which seems to be modeled theoretically on what's happened with RGGI. We came out in support of Governor Baker's leadership of that last year. That seems quite promising as well. And I think the one of the challenges for Hancock as a global organization is that we operate in Canada. There's already a carbon pricing scheme there. It varies between some provinces. Carbon pricing is about to be enacted nationally in China. Nationally here, those conversations aren't as far along. And so I think generally the concept for sure of pricing that externality, pricing that pollution, which is causing so many future costs and current costs that aren't being accounted for, is something that as a financial institution is quite appealing. But I think to Cynthia's point, what is the exact way of doing it, and sort of what is the scheme that's being proposed?
Mm-hmm. Ted, do you think? Well, let me ask you. What kind of grade would you give Beacon Hill in terms of addressing climate change? Would you say they're doing? Kyle sort of seemed to think Massachusetts was maybe a cut above the rest of the nation a little bit, or more progressive in addressing these things. Do you see it that way?
I do, with a caveat, though. I think that the U.S. is far behind some other places in the world. So while Mass is leading on a national level, we can have higher aspirations. We all know that the challenges that we face are not. I mean, the old thinking is that it was 100 years from now, and maybe we're seeing with the National Climate Assessment and the international. The IPCC report that we have basically 10 years to really dramatically change the way we use energy, the way we use transportation, not only in this country but around the world. So we need bold leadership. I think bold leadership, and I think we all should be proud of that Massachusetts leads the nation in a lot of categories in energy efficiency and education and so forth. but we're not where we need to be in order to meet the challenges that the scientists say we are facing. And there's broad consensus. There's more consensus about climate change than cigarette smoking in terms of its cause on. It's been studied more. It's understood in every country, even some countries that are really, far behind us in terms of our development. That this is something that needs to be dealt with and dealt with aggressively and forcefully in current time. Not something that we can just wait, because it's only going to get more expensive to deal with these issues, and the problems are going to get bigger.
What would be one thing you would recommend to people on Beacon Hill that we should be doing that we aren't doing?
I think you're right that the price on carbon, whether it's a fee and rebate or whatever you want to call it, is semantics as far as I'm concerned. Devil is in the details, as Cynthia said. But it's not a silver bullet, but it is a silver buckshot in terms of being able to facilitate all of these other changes that need to happen, because it sends strong market signals to all the right people in terms of investment, in terms of business, that this is the new reality. We're in a carbon-constrained world now, and China knows this. They're doing much more than the United States in a lot of things, with auto emissions and so forth. But I think we need to recognize that this is the urgency that we need to recognize as business people, as consumers, as politicians, is paramount. And we're not going to get there if we don't take a bold vision, and a bold vision at the state level. And we can all be proud of where we are now. But given the scale of the challenges that we face, we need a bolder vision, which then can embolden, if you will, all of the businesses. Because once it becomes some common, the conventional wisdom, everyone will get behind it. And I used to go to the American Hotel and Lodging Association in the early days when they had an environmental committee, and people would roll their eyes when I talked about this stuff. And 10 years later, they were all bragging about their latest initiative in terms of renewable energy or composting and so. So there really can be a sea change if you have the right setting for it.
And Kyle, do you have anything you would recommend, like a specific policy that state leaders should be pursuing that you think would be helpful, maybe spurring action in the business community and across the state?
It's a great question. I agree with Ted. I mean, I think there are really three areas that won't come as a huge surprise. It's our buildings, it's transportation, and I also think it's our resilience and infrastructure to things like sea level rise. And in terms of buildings, we have a very old stock of buildings here in the state, particularly Boston, and I think buildings are probably close to 50% of our emissions. So what are the policy mechanisms that can really enable the urgent and rapid change and efficiency retrofits that Ted mentioned that need to happen, frankly, and how can perhaps the private sector help in financing those? In terms of transportation, we've seen recently New York City looking at congestion pricing. We've all heard recently how Boston now has the honor of having the worst rush hour traffic in the country. I haven't seen those conversations go very far on the Hill, but the idea of fewer cars, more public transportation, more biking, I think would help not only in terms of climate but health as well. And then we saw Mayor Walsh, with some really bold ambition around resilience in the waterfront, both gray and green infrastructure, and that's not a Boston issue alone, and we all know that all these towns are connected. So I think it's incumbent on the state and the city to try to work together to enable investment in that infrastructure as well. And that's a real challenge, because investing in something like a building or investing in proper sewer drainage, rebuilding the more industrial, traditional infrastructure projects is very financeable. But when you're talking about wetlands and you're talking about parks, no one's really figured out, what are the revenue streams that come from an investment like a traditional infrastructure investment would bring. And so I think that people really need to put their heads together if Boston will prepare itself for, I hate to say the next Sandy, but whatever else is to come.
So I'm a little curious about where you guys stand on what has become sort of a litmus test issue on Beacon Hill. Many in the business community would like to see more natural gas pipeline infrastructure into the region because at certain times of the year, we don't have enough natural gas to power the power plants that we have because when it's very cold, most of that gas is going for heating. And so the prices skyrocket of electricity and what have you. But it's almost become, a test of where you stand on this issue because there's a logical argument to adding a pipeline coming into the region to make sure there's plentiful gas, and gas is relatively cheap right now in the United States. But a lot of environmentalists say that's the wrong way to go because that just will build a pipeline that will last 20 years and will continue to rely on fossil fuels. Have you guys thought about this? Do you have any position on that? What you think should be done?
Speaking as a private citizen,
Sure.
and not as representing, because I haven't spoken with folks at JLL about this, but personally, I'm not in favor of additional pipelines, and although recognizing fully that we need to be able to meet the energy requirements, we have I don't know how many miles of existing pipeline that leaks massively, and so we're just there's a tremendous amount of loss that is that's going through our current pipelines. So rather than build yet another pipeline and bring more gas in, I would be an advocate. I am an advocate for plugging the holes.
Right.
I mean, there's a cost associated with that as well, but deal with what you have. I mean, it's very much similar, to an infrastructure type. We're in our building here in Boston, in my JLL building. We're taking a whole retrofit. As Kyle mentioned about buildings, being a significant source of greenhouse gas emissions, and the building it's from the skin and the inside. We're doing a tremendous renovation, and the building had never been LEED certified. It had no certification. Well, we're taking that step. There's a cost associated with that. We're not doing it for building bling. We're doing it because it makes good business sense. So, and likewise, when I look at the investments that have been made historically into the existing pipeline, fix them as opposed to bringing in yet another.
Right. Anybody else?
I think what Cynthia says makes a lot of sense in terms of the inefficiency of the current system, and the entrenched interests want to do things the way that they've been done. I mean, we've got a new fuel, but it's still sunken cost into a 20 or 30 year infrastructure that I don't think anyone's going to want to pay for 10 years from now, 20 years from now, in terms of ratepayers. There's no reason that we shouldn't be investing heavily in renewables. We spend I don't know what the figure is off the top of my head, but it's many millions of dollars that we send out of state because we're at the end of the pipeline. So whatever fuel we're buying, fossil fuel we're buying, we're sending money out of the state. Why wouldn't we keep that money in the state where we have all sorts of solar and wind resources and can invest those dollars locally, create jobs, and so forth? And to me, it makes sense as a strategic issue, something that the state should be looking at in terms of a vision for the state. Being a leader in this makes a lot more sense than investing in what is really a 19th century technology.
And Kyle, I wondered if you could sort of sum up a little bit, and everybody else feel free to chime in, but we talked a little bit about various business groups. ELM might have one point of view, and certain companies are associated with that. There are other business groups out there that might have a different approach to some of these issues. What kind of debate, is there any broader debate going on in the business community out there about this, or is it everybody sort of going into their camps, if you will, and we're going to see maybe you guys will keep gaining adherents and they'll lose, or how does that work? Or how do you see it work?
Yeah, without a doubt, there's a growing expectation that companies lend their voice and influence on important social and environmental issues. Employees care about it, customers care about it, the general public cares about it. I think in terms of as the increase in pressure to do that rises, there will always be, across a range of issues, there could always be disagreements between a corporate perspective on an issue and a business, existing business coalition's perspective on an issue. And so I think it's incumbent on companies, and I think the conversation is happening within organizations to dig into those issues that companies feel very compelled to lend a voice to and to advocate for, and look across the organizations that they might already be members of and see if there's opportunities to engage with those organizations to talk about those issues, or weighing the risk-benefit of publicly being in disagreement across those issues. So, one of the things I think I'm seeing in Massachusetts, though, is much more of an effort from organizations that perhaps in the past might be advocating for different policies to, at a minimum, come together and see if what are those opportunities, say, around climate change, where they do share a unique, an aligned perspective on whether it's renewables or something else, and coming together and not always sort of butt heads, but also look for opportunities to actually have a shared voice on an issue.
So you see that actually I mean, I don't really see that publicly happening, but you see it behind the scenes happening?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to bring it to an end here, and I want to thank our guest, Cynthia Curtis of the commercial real estate firm JLL, Cahill, Director of Corporate Responsibility at John Hancock, and Tedd Saunders, Chief Sustainability Officer at the Saunders Hotel Group. Thanks to all of you for being here.
Thank you, and happy
Thanks,
Earth
Bruce.
Day.
Thank you.
Same to you.
Happy Earth Day.
We'll see you all next week.